doing, mate? You alright?
I'm in a bit of a mood today.
Why? Are you in a mood today?
because someone out there, we don't know who, someone out there has taken the email address letstalkprocurement@gmail.com. Is that
Yeah,
it?
this is a travesty. Let's talk procurement@gmail.com.
I don't understand how someone, like, what use would that be to anyone except me and you?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of livid about it, to be fair.
Maybe there's another podcast out there called Let's Talk Procurement. We just haven't found them.
Maybe they're like us, they just haven't published anything.
I mean, that is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Because by the time anyone hears this, it will be published. So, I mean, what should we kind of email the account and see who it is, or should we just kind of eventually? I mean, I'm imagining like all of our many fans, ultras that are listening, will now they've heard the email address, go and spam that address. And obviously not that I'm condoning any form of bullying, but surely we need to get this address.
What direction do we want to take as a podcast? You know, do we want to be friendly and just take a nice sort of, nice friendly approach to this email address and kind of just reach out, or do we want to go the other way and just absolutely hound them into submission?
Well, I think the way to answer that is which would be more fun.
And are you saying that politeness is never fun? I feel like that's where you're going.
Well, I don't want to get myself in any legal trouble, but all I'm saying is that we are the one and only Let's Talk Procurement. So why shouldn't we have that address?
Yeah, that's true. And I was actually listening to some other podcasts on the weekend. I probably established we're going to be around the probably 6th or 7th best podcast out there.
Yeah, kind of that's probably fair.
I think that's a reasonable ambition.
World or just Europe?
I was thinking just the UK, to be honest, mate.
What about, I think I'd be happy if we could be the top 10 procurement podcast run by two males, called Let's Talk Procurement. If we can be in the top 10 of that,
I'll take that. Maybe we could just start today's session with a light-hearted joke.
Here we go.
Ready?
Yep.
What do you call your friend who stands in a hole?
And what do I call my friend that stands in a hole?
Phil.
Oh, that was quite bad. That was. It was bad because it was good because it was bad. Sorry, that's why I laughed, because it was bad.
I didn't just actually hear you laugh, to be honest.
It was a muted laugh.
Oh.
A sniffle.
Okay, I'll up my game for next time.
We just have to have joke wars at some point throughout the procurement joke wars.
But it kind of feels like I'm losing already because you didn't laugh.
Some air came out of my nose, if that helps.
I appreciate you're still
breathing. Does that fill you with confidence?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Anyway, we've rambled on for probably about 5 minutes, so what are we doing today?
I'm glad you asked. That's what I was kind of waiting for, because I think last episode I cocked up and asked you, and I had the agenda planned, really. So, absolute juicy topic today. It's what is the difference? It kind of sounds like a joke. What is the difference between goods and services?
Well, that's a CIPS topic, is it?
That is absolutely a CIPS topic. A lot of the considerations we have to make is around when you're an ops manager, operations manager, or even from a strategic perspective, you've got to understand the key differences between goods and services, because that will affect a number of things. So maybe how you contract it, how you process it, how you get feedback on it, basically the whole way you treat it and kind of what you're looking for.
It sometimes feels like there's more, I mean, before we get into the meat, but there's potentially more things that could be kind of, I don't know, could go wrong maybe when it's a good. I'd say maybe because I've done more services procurements throughout my my long career so far, that maybe I understand more about what needs to happen. Whereas, if you said procure some goods, then I don't know, it kind of feels to me like there's more to do. But maybe, I'm just setting out my initial feelings. Maybe that can be the circular structure of the podcast, is by the time we get to the end, my
See if you've changed
my
your
opinion
mind.
would have changed. Yeah,
I got a feeling it might change actually.
interesting.
Have you kind of got an idea in your head of what a good is? Goodies? Goodos?
So, what is a group of goods called?
Goodos.
Goodo. Anyway,
Goodo,
moving
mate.
on from that ramble. I think a good is basically something that's like a physical product. Like maybe an example could be a laptop, or I don't know, even some food that you're ordering, like some chicken. Shout out to the KFC episode. Hopefully we've published that by the time this goes out.
Brilliant. And what about some examples of a service?
It could be something like a business analyst, or maybe office cleaning services. I reckon those are the two examples I'd probably think of. Well, those are the two that came to mind initially anyway. Something that you can't really see in terms of it's not a physical thing, but it's more something that someone's doing. Maybe like I don't know, if you call up, if you have a product, you need to call support and talk to them when something goes wrong, or you can't work out how to do something.
I'll give you that. And do you see suppliers as solely exclusive to just selling goods or just selling services, or have you got an example where they might be doing both?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, when you said that, one thing that came to mind straight away was, say, to go back to the laptops that we just said. So maybe you've bought a laptop, which is a good, something physical that you can see, or it's probably not, you can probably touch it. It's probably the better way to say. And then once you've bought that laptop, if something goes wrong, you need to take it to someone or call someone up who's on a service desk, and they'll be providing like a professional service of, like a non-physical thing about
that's fair
how
enough.
to repair it.
So if you go to, I don't know where you buy your clothes, maybe Tesco. If you go to Tesco's to buy a new pair of jeans, obviously you are going to buy some goods, and that is what you're getting from that shop. If you get a taxi, you're buying a service, and that is all you're getting from the taxi driver. It's a service. And then if you look at something like, you say, like a laptop or a hotel is another example where they're giving you goods and services. So the actual accommodation will be your service. And we'll kind of go into why in a short while. But the food they're giving you is a good. So yeah, I think that's spot on. I guess we go on to understanding the differences of goods and services according to CIPS. I think it's fairly black and white, a lot of it, but let's dive into it, because there are 7 things to go through.
7, bloody hell.
Yeah,
What
7.
you
7 differences.
must be reaching to the depths of some sort of CIPS textbook there.
Don't be silly, mate. Don't expose me.
It's all in the brain, is it?
Absolutely, mate. Once you've learned CIPS, you don't forget it.
It's like riding a bike, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's interesting. You did allude to a difference a short while ago. Can you remember what you said?
I have the memory of a goldfish, so no.
Brilliant. That's going to really help you on the exams journey. I think you actually said the word touched.
Yes, I did say
So,
that.
Yeah, and then you kind of said there might be a more professional word for it, and you're absolutely right. It's fingered.
Like a guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah, so goods can be fingered, but services can't.
Well, is that the definition?
No, it's actually tangibility. So goods are tangible, i.e. you can touch goods, you're physical, they're very much there. Services cannot be touched, which is kind of interesting, right? Because you can touch your barber.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Please ask consent if you're going to try and follow up with that, because that does not sound like great advice.
Yeah. Maybe that's what Janet did that was wrong. Tried to touch the barber.
Yeah. Janet is a bit of a raunchy minx, isn't she? Shout out to Janet, obviously. So services, you can probably touch an element of the service. You can touch a taxi, but actually it's all about the experience. So the service is selling the experience, your journey, your trim, the process of sitting in the barber chair, the process of getting a massage. So services are intangible and goods are tangible.
I don't know if this is one of the 7, but one thing that sort of made me think of when you said the taxi example was, like, yes, you can touch the car that you're driving in, but then at the end of the taxi ride, you don't then own the car.
Oh my God.
Is that something to do with it?
That is absolutely the second difference.
Genuinely, like, we've actually put some work into it and rehearsed it, but
it feels like that.
Too much.
That would be too much, and I honestly don't know how you've done it, mate, but you have absolutely just ticked the next one off. So the next one's ownership. The ownership of goods is transferable, so typically you'll give someone money and then the goods become yours, kind of black and white, right? So you buy a sausage and then you've now got a sausage. It becomes your sausage as opposed to Tesco's.
Could you ever have too many sausages though?
No, I'm fairly good on my sausage consumption. I do prefer chicken ones now though.
Oh, that is disgusting. Let's move on quickly before we get loads of hate mail. Chicken sausages are not the one.
Now, have you had them? Heck, there are other brands available. Have you had Heck's one?
But chicken is chicken. Sausage is sausage. I mean, I'm generally an open-minded guy, but that's just kind of made me feel a bit sick. I mean, I'll give it a go. That's what we do. That's my homework for the next podcast. Is try
Chug
some.
a couple of chicken sausages and get back to me.
And you got to try the E5 petrol from last, if it is the last podcast, and then we'll come back and compare notes.
I feel like mine's going to be a lot more expensive, but we'll roll with it. So yeah, you're right. Services aren't transferable. You don't take the taxi driver or the taxi back home. You just literally get the journey, and then once you've done it, you've experienced it.
You could, if you wanted to, take the taxi driver back home, but it isn't recommended.
I feel like we're getting back into Janet's world here.
Janet, please stop taking taxi drivers back home.
Yeah, she needs to stop taking advice from us, to be fair. Seeing as you guessed the second one, do you want to guess the third one? Or
Oh god, that's too far from me. Right, what a difference between a good and a service.
A little bit of a clue, right? So we're talking about sausages. What happens when you bought a sausage? What do you do with it?
Staring at it admirationally. Is that even a word? Look at it with love and treat it nice and care for it. Is that where you're going?
That's not where I was going. No, I was going to say storage. Actually, like you bring your food shopping home and you put it in the fridge.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So
let's just say I do that.
Yeah, you get the sausage home and then you store it in the fridge, and you can have half the sausage now, half the sausage later, right? You can have 1 out of the 10 sausages now, 7 later, whatever you want. With services, you cannot store that service for a future use. When you buy that service, you are consuming that service on the spot.
Again, referring back to Janet's mistakes, she once tried to keep a cleaning lady from the office, tried to take her back home and store her. Didn't go down too well.
Brilliant. Our only listener is a bit of a nutter. Is that what you're saying?
I think that reflects well on us, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair to say Janet's probably been trying to complete her CIPS for the last 10 years.
Seems reasonable.
So does that make sense, storage? Are you happy with that?
Happy with that, yeah. I mean, it's kind of feels like self-explanatory, but not one that you would kind of, like, once you know it, it's self-explanatory is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The next one is measuring the quality of what you receive. You've just bought a sofa. How do you measure the quality of it?
Touch it, sit on it.
Yep, sit on it, bounce on it, do whatever you need to do. Feel the material, kind of get a grip from it, enjoy it. 2 months later, you hopefully still get the same pleasure from sitting down on it. How do you measure the quality of a taxi journey?
Did they get you from A to B, first of all?
Yeah.
And were you sick in the back of the Uber because you had too many pints?
I mean, is that the taxi driver's fault, or is that?
Well, it depends how they were driving, I suppose. If they were on a mad one.
Yeah, and I think
might have been. That was my excuse anyway.
It's quite interesting because the measuring the quality of goods, there's a lot of standards and like I guess, quality standards, ISOs, things like that, that effectively say what level of good you're going to get to a degree. If you're going to a hotel and it's a 3-star or a 4-star, you kind of already got in your mind the difference in terms of standards and what you can expect.
Whereas if it's big hours, 24-hour motel, probably not going to get the same 5-star service.
No, exactly. With services, it's a lot trickier to measure. So if you look at the company that rhymes with Fluber, the way that they score their drivers, actually, I think you mentioned them earlier, Uber. When you've done an Uber ride, you get the ability to score your driver, and you can go in sort of the generic 5-star, but there's things that you can request, like the driver doesn't talk to you, or
really?
the driver plays music. Yeah. All those sorts of different intricacies, but it's really subjective. So what you class as a 5-star Uber ride will be different to what I class as a 5-star Uber ride.
For sure.
And it will differ from A to B. So it's really hard to kind of get a consistent measure.
I don't know about you, but basically when it comes to rating stuff like that, I feel too awkward to give anything less than a 5-star. So if I'm not willing to give a 5-star, I just don't give any
rating.
5-star
on nothing from you.
Yeah, maybe that's just the Britishness in me.
But do you give them a tip?
No. I'm not spending more money.
So
I don't like them that much.
You've gone onto an Uber to get a very cheap ride, clearly below the market price, and then you just don't give the driver a tip, despite the fact that the driver's been working for 19 hours straight and not seen his kids for 7 months.
If you had put in place a contract and negotiated a saving less than market price, would you then go and give that saving away to the supplier?
Absolutely not.
There you go then.
Yeah, well said. Okay. I understand that. And I give most Uber drivers 5-star. I've had to give a few 1-stars. Had a driver who nodded off at the wheel. And I had to raise a bit of a request with Uber and a sort of severe complaint. I got my money back, and
I'm right.
The driver probably lost his job or got a warning or something, but that was actually quite terrifying.
That shows that you need to kind of factor in some sort of social value into, not making drivers work for 15 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear he'd worked a long day. Was just trying to earn some more crust. The next one is, what happens if you? I don't know why I keep going. Let's use sofa. You buy a sofa, you get it home, and then you realise it's missing one of the core cushions, or it's missing one of the arms on the sofa. What do you do?
Ring up and complain and get them to give me a new arm.
Brilliant. And what if you rock up and it stinks like tramp? What do you do?
Well, I'm not having that in my home. Smells bad enough as it is, so gonna need to get a new one.
So you probably return it, right?
Yep.
Bada bing, bada boom. That's what you do with a good mate. Return it.
And you can't return services.
No, you can't ring up a taxi driver and say, right, I want to return. You can ask for a return journey, but that's not the same thing, because you've got to pay for another service. Yeah, you go to a barber's and then they hold up the mirror and say, do you like your trim? And you just say yes, despite the fact they've absolutely butchered it.
Can't ask them to super glue the hair back on.
Yeah, you can't do that. Absolutely not. Or, they can't get rid of the Nike tick they just shaved in the back.
Could be any other brand.
Yeah, I mean, what other brands would you get? I mean, a tick's fairly easy, isn't it? Kind of maybe the Subway logo or something like that.
Yeah, go for like a really complex, like Puma one. It's not complex, really, is it? But
no. Microsoft Windows logo on the back of your head.
That would be good, yeah. Especially if you're going into a negotiation with Apple.
Yeah, well, I mean, an Apple on the back of your head would be alright, wouldn't it?
Could work.
Yeah, I feel like the Windows one wouldn't be that good, actually, because it wouldn't have any colour in it. It'd just be 4 squares.
So I was also thinking as well, when you're saying about taxi, is that you can basically, like, I don't know, you can't have the service of getting you from A to B, and you can't have that without the taxi driver, is what I'm trying to say. So like the service comes with kind of, or if you think about like cleaning services, the cleaners come with their hoovers or their cleaning fluids or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that compares to goods, but that's something I was thinking about.
It's interesting because I would always thought that, but CIPS kind of go into the detail and say that actually, because the way technology is going, it's not always a human delivering a service now.
True.
Sometimes you might get a piece of tech that delivers the service, so they kind of steer away from that as a difference, whereas before it might have been. But the kind of last two, there's variability, so they say that goods should be identical. When I go to Nando's, I get my chicken fries medium with peri-peri chips and rice and coleslaw. And I know that every time I go to Nando's, I'm going to get that, and it's going to be just as good as it was last time.
Roughly.
Whereas the services, barber, as an example, oh my god, some days trim, solid 6 out of 10. Other days, I'm like, nah, this is not the one.
I feel you, yeah. And I think it depends a lot on the barber's mood. So what I've started trying to do is go earlier during the day when he's, you know, fresh. You know, if he's just kind of opened up maybe like an hour ago, you know, he's had a couple of clients to warm up, and then I'm in there at a decent time, you know, so he's not rushing, he's not stressed, he's not got achy hands.
Yeah, I like that. The late night Thursday trim, mate, is not the one. You know, the barber's been on his feet for 10 hours already. He's dealt with all the school kids, and then you rock up and, you know, you ask for the same trim that he's given to 50 other people.
Exactly. So he's going to rush it, and it's not going to be as consistent as it would have been for the last ones.
Yeah, so there's a big variation in how a service can be perceived, right? So even your Uber, you know, you get 10, 15 different drivers for 10, 15 different journeys. So and how that goes is kind of different. And then the last one, and I'm not sure I agree with it actually, although we'll go with it. It's the time interval between production and consumption.
Okay.
In fact, no, I do agree with it. I'm just going crazy.
Give us an example.
So for goods, the sausages might be produced in a farm today, but the actual consumption of that sausage might not be until December, January.
Yeah.
Service, you go in and ask for a haircut, you're instantly getting that haircut, so you consume it. What I'm saying I'm not kind of sure is that you can actually like pre-order a taxi or something like that. But I guess your service doesn't start till you get in the taxi, so it's still technically production and consumption at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but the two examples I have in my head for goods and services, respectively, are laptops and cleaning people. I don't know why, but those are the two I think of. And obviously, the laptop is made, all the components put together, and then, you know, it's delivered to you.
Yep.
Whereas cleaning services, you know, until that person starts cleaning your desk, you're gonna have a load of spilt tea and biscuit crumbs all over it, aren't you?
Oh my god, I got crumb everywhere.
That crumb just gets all in the way, doesn't it?
It really does. Honestly, on my keyboard, it's the worst. Like, just turn my keyboard upside down and McVitie's are coming out left, right, and centre. Get unreal.
So to summarise the 7, was it 7 differences?
Yeah, 7.
Go on, let's list them off.
Right, we'll start from the top. So we've got tangibility, aka touchable, fingerable, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got ownership. So goods can be owned by the person who basically buys them, so they're transferable in their ownership. Services are not. Storage, goods can be purchased and then stored for future use. Services can't. How you measure quality, it's fairly straightforward and simple with goods, at least most goods. Services, it can be complicated and very subjective. Returns, so you can't actually return a service, but you can return goods. Variability, so goods tend to be identical or as close to identical as humanly possible, whereas services have a huge degree of variation, and it can depend on, like you say, the barber's mood or the taxi driver's shift, how long they've been working, etc. And then lastly, goods are produced and consumed at the same time. Services are no, that is absolutely wrong. Goods
The trick.
are produced at a given period of time and then consumed at a later date. Services are produced and consumed at the same time.
Nice. And if you were going into a CIPS example, how would you kind of set yourself up for it? Would you have examples ready to go, or would you just kind of memorize the differences between the two?
I think it's quite an interesting one, because in the exam you can kind of look around the room and you can probably see a couple of goods that kind of work, and even the invigilator is providing a service. So worst case scenario, you go, we've got an invigilator. We're experiencing her walking around the room, or him or her walking around the room. Hard to measure how good they are as an invigilator and all of that sort of stuff.
But always have something to kind of refer back to remind you of what the 7 differences are.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I don't think you need all 7. I think if you can remember 5, that will cover you in most essay scenarios, or multiple choice situations. So it comes up in multiple choice quite a lot. What are the characteristics? Like, which of these are characteristics of a service, or which of these are characteristics of a good? And then in essay, you do get the essay exams that kind of say, well, what are 5 factors you need to consider when procuring A or B?
Brilliant. Well, I thought that was very informative. Thanks for transferring that knowledge across. You know what they say, knowledge shared is knowledge halved.
Absolutely. And by the time our listeners have listened, it'll be quartered.
Perfect. I mean, so I guess the only bit to finish up on is send this podcast to someone if you really hate them, and you despise their whole being, or if you have ever seen a pork pie in your whole life, and if you've been sent this podcast and either the person hates you and despises you, or they've seen they've seen a pork pie in their whole life. So hope you enjoyed.
Love me a little Melton Mulberry. I'll see you next time.
See you later.
See you later.